first seconds,
you
will not have sound.
Yeah.
Just the time that he is switching
Yeah.
from the podium to this one.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Great.
No problem.
Voilà. Enfin, normalement. Enfin, ça fait 10 ans. Enfin, 10 ans. C'est vraiment normal. Les cortiques. Ouais. Et là, il y a encore Mathieu. Il y a encore un poste avec Mathieu dedans quand même. C'est pour ça qu'il voilà. Là, Mathieu, il a fait ci. Il a fait ci. Enfin,
know what I was thinking? Maybe we could even do some like soft background music for people when they come in for the session. I can ask Anton if I can send them a link or something to just so we have a little bit of background to put the presenters and the rest of people at ease, and it's kind of nice. It's not going to compete with the conversations because like it's not in the coffee break area, and we can put it on super low volume. I know it relaxes people, so it might be nice.
Yeah.
Last year was 60, I think, half. Grew quite a bit. A third. Dang. Well, I know that 60 paid, I think.
Yeah, so I think that usually
Yeah.
we should get
Yeah. We can also shout for him. Has anybody seen Benoit? I doubt they could hear me. I think the mic was not on. Good morning, everybody. We're missing a general chair. Benoit, reappear. I hope you all had a good night's sleep. Hugh had a lot of fun yesterday evening playing all the games and aiming really badly at a board of wood. Only me? Well, we gotta keep the lights on, otherwise I can't see the hands up. Please. So we had a lot of fun yesterday playing new games, learning about new games, and a ton of delicious food. And who of you was inspired last night by the art performance in here? I know it was a bit more of a presentation than a performance, and they've been performing a lot in the past, and there was not enough room on the stage to bring the actual physical objects. It would have been really nice to see the wheat growing bit by bit. And here we have a general chair. Ta-da! Good morning, Benoit. And let's give a big round of applause for our general chairs as I'm handing over the mic.
welcome everyone to the fourth day of the ICT4S conference. So today what we'll do is we'll hear from some of our sponsors, and then it's a customary thing to show some statistics about the conference, and then we have our second keynote of the OFF program. So today we have two events actually in the OFF program. So in the morning we have the keynote, and then in the afternoon we have also the panel in addition to the remaining academic program and a yoga session, as well as our conference gala. And tomorrow we close with early jogging session and 4 workshops throughout the day. So with that, I hand over the microphone to Gaël Blondel, the Chief Membership Officer of the Eclipse Foundation, one of our key sponsors of the conference.
Thank you, Günther. So, well, thanks Benoit and Günther for inviting us to sponsor. We are very grateful to be able to meet this community. And in these 5 minutes, I want to answer one of the questions I heard several times this week: is why is the Eclipse Foundation here, and what are you doing in terms of sustainability? So the truth is that to some extent we are here to meet you, we are here to learn, because I think that, well, 4 days ago I was likely very naive about sustainability. To some extent, I'm a specialist in open source, and I think that, yeah, I'm naive in sustainability, like most of you are naive in open source. So that's potentially somewhere where we can learn together and start working together. And so just to elaborate on this topic about what is open source in a second, is that lots of people think that doing open source is publishing code on GitHub or GitLab and choosing a license. And the fact is that it's much more than that. And what do we do at the Eclipse Foundation is we help people and organizations do open source in a proper way. And I mean that we provide well, lots of boring stuff, like a legal framework. We provide collaboration practices. We also provide nice stuff, like we set up places and events so that people can collaborate, and we come to events like this. And one thing maybe to come back to open source and sustainability is that we have a characteristic that we are a non-profit organization. We are now established in Europe. We used to be American, but we are a European non-profit organization. And at the very beginning of our bylaws, it's written that our mission is to ensure the sustainability of our projects and communities. And if you think about it a bit longer, think about the software you have been using for more than 5 years. For example, I don't know, Firefox, Emacs, LaTeX, stuff like that. It's likely that they are all open source. So there is a characteristic in properly managed open source projects to be sustainable. And this week, what I want to do on my side is to meet people like you to see how we can create a critical mass of open source projects and how we can start collaborating and pushing those software to all the developers we have access to. So, well, thanks again, and let's continue the conversation. We are here today and always happy to discuss with you. Thank you.
We also like to thank the Foundation Rennes 1 and its Deputy President, Sophie Langouet-Brichon, for the tremendous support that we received from them for the conference. So we are really happy to report that we were able to almost triple the attendance of the conference from last year. So in total, we have about 180 attendees. And as you can see, we were able to attract more than half of the attendees from France. And so looking at it from continents, it's a clearly European conference. So there's definitely a lot of room to grow here. So we then had a look at a little bit more at the registrations, and we have about half of the attendees here from the academic community. Another 25% are students, and the industrial partners are around 15%. I think this is a little lower than the actual number because we had a number of late on-site registrations, and they were predominantly from companies, and they are not really factored into this. And we also have a representation of artists in our community. There is a prize. You get bragging rights. The last early registration that we received, there were still a few hours to spare, came from Sweden. And so we also wanted then to see who was the last late registration. Not on site. Not surprisingly, it came from France, and more specifically, it was a local registration. So then we were thinking, okay, well, let's have a look at the behavior, and we don't really have figures from previous years, but we were surprised by the number of late registrations that we got. So you can see it's almost a quarter of the registrations. And again, the on-site registrations are not figured in here, so the number is actually a little bit higher. And then we got a little bit more curious, and we wanted to know whether those late registrations are from France or where are they coming from. So we did a quick breakdown by countries. And well, we're happy to report that 100% of the attendees from Brazil, Côte d'Ivoire, and Tunisia registered late. And France is only 5th in this statistics, so it was beaten by Germany as well. All right, and with that, I hand over to Birgit and Thais, our wonderful besiegers.
Good morning again. We have some more statistics. As you can see, they're very detailedly elaborated. These are also estimated. I did correct that slide into guesstimated this morning. Cups of coffee consumed in the preparation of this conference, 11,042. Could have been 43 if I count my coffee this morning. Gray hairs grown, overall 78. I think that's pretty good for an organizing committee of more than 20 people. Stairs climbed to lower the overall energy emissions of the conference, about 7,800,000 and so on and so forth. Maybe it was more, especially if we figure in the run yesterday morning. Loud laughs shared in OC meetings, 299. That's at least one too few. So I want to really thank the entire organizing committee. I've been honored to work with all of you. It's been pretty fabulous, and we did have a lot of fun during our meetings too. General chairs cursing silently in French, why they took on that mission. Estimated 13 times by me, maybe it was way more, maybe way less, who knows? Oh, Benoit says it was less. Good, okay. Birgit thinking someone forgot something when she had actually completely missed their email about it. Happened twice. Sorry, publication chairs. And contemplated revolution since taking on this mission, maybe about 7 times. Now you may ask, what are these contemplated revolutions about? And I think that's really interesting. So what future direction should conferences be taken in general? How do we educate people on sustainability? All these sorts of things. To be continued in the outcomes of the conference. For right now, I hand over to my lovely co-chair.
Good morning. I will present the statistics about the review process. We have in the research track 46 PC members, 3 reviewers per paper, and 168 reviews. The PC members are from several parts of the world. Most of them are from Germany, and we have PC members from Europe, from America, and most of them are concentrated also in Europe. And in terms of the submission status for the research track, we had 56 submissions, 202 authors, and the authors are from several countries as well, with a concentration also in Europe. In terms of demonstration and posters, we had 20 submissions. For the doctoral symposium, we have 12 submissions, and for journal first, we have 4 submissions, and for the workshop, 16 submissions. The authors come from 22 countries, and now Birgit will present the acceptance status.
With the help of our lovely PC, we got to accept 18 out of 56 papers directly. And thanks to Thais for sending countless reminder emails about sticking to the new review template. And thank you for all of you who complied to those, because we wanted to give more detailed feedback and in different quality categories. And I think that's something that we'll continue to ask for next year. We did accept 2 more after revision, leading us to a 35% acceptance rate in total. We had the discussion every year, do we do conditional accepts or not? And there were 2 papers where we thought, we really, really want to include this because we think it's super important to talk about these topics, and we want to have these people included in the community, and we want to show this as a growing and welcoming community. So we decided to go for conditional accepts for the 2 papers where we said, they're just at the borderline and we want them to be here, so please improve these things and then come join us. For our journals first track, we did accept all 4 of the submissions because they were fitting the scope really well, and they had already been reviewed for the respective journals. We have we have between 1 and 5 authors per submission, and a total of countries affiliation of 14, and you see the stats on where they came from or where their primary institutions are. For the demonstrations and posters, we accepted 13, 65% for the doctoral symposium. We had 10 submissions and accepted 83% of that, which translates, I believe, to 9. Yeah, journals first, 100%, like I said, and we had 6 workshop submissions, and they had a 37% acceptance rate. Conference outcomes. Have you been doing the last 2.5 days, 3.5 days. So this is a list by me from the conversations with you individually. We have found new questions. We have found new research ideas. Also, let's stay a little bit with our new questions before finding solutions. Let's live in the question for a bit. New collaboration ideas. I got a lot of new books on my reading list, only from the workshop on Monday, and then more. Maybe there were invitations for research visits and or talks. There is a special issue to contribute to. By now you can find the call on the website under Attending, the Journal of Industrial Ecology call. Maybe you made new friends. I did. Maybe you have participated in some interesting art experiences, and there will be more to come of that. Also, please all put out your phones, take out your phones and type in the subscription page of the mailing list. Just kidding. We do have a general ICT4S mailing list. We do not automatically roll over the conference participants into this mailing list, so if you wish to be part of it, please subscribe now. And then, well, I don't know what else you're gonna do until the next ICT4S. I would certainly hope that you plan to attend, and we're gonna hear about that now from the chairs of the next ICT4S. Please welcome to the stage Daniel and Elina.
There will be QR codes in the end, so don't put your phones too far away. We have a reactor hall 20 meters underground where it could be quite dark, but not as dark as this, I think.
Okay, so we will start by showing you a few pictures. We didn't say where the conference will be, so let's see if these 4 pictures will give you a clue. This is our beautiful city where we are. Many of you have talked to us, so you know what this is. But in case you don't, just look at the nice pictures of what will welcome you next year. And now I will ask you, so who knows where the next conference will be? Could you raise a hand? Okay, it's a bit hard to see, but half. So it will be in Stockholm, Sweden. We have, yeah. It's beautiful in summer. It's not a coincidence that we organize it in June rather than in February. Even the subway is beautiful. There's artwork in almost 100 stations, and there are art tours. This happens to be the artwork from our own subway station. Our university has a subway station where you would pass by. Probably most of people would come by subway. It's 3 stations from central Stockholm. And it will be hosted on the campus of our university, KTH Royal Institute of Technology. This is the courtyard. The university will celebrate its 200th anniversary in a couple of years, but we've been here in these buildings for slightly more than 100 years. Courtyard from another angle, and actually our windows are up on the top floor there. Our remodeled library, which is both indoors and outdoors, or it was outdoors, now it's indoors. And this is what you will actually see when you walk from the subway. And keep your eyes on the round building in the middle, because that's actually where the conference itself will be hosted. It's the architecture building, which is new but looks old on purpose. So we will host you at the ICT4S conference next year. It will be a highly interactive conference format, which we will explore. There will be program both on-site and virtual. And Important dates are, of course, when the conference will be held in end of June, Monday to Friday. Same setup as here with workshops Monday, Friday, and then conference program in the middle of the week. And also important or interesting for you to know already now is that the deadline for submissions will be in the end of or second half of January. And letters of acceptance beginning of April and camera-ready version end of April. So those are probably the dates you need to keep in mind if you want to submit papers, which we welcome you all to do. And I have one more slide. Yes. So we have an organizing committee, and the people in bold are people who are actually here now at the conference. So you can talk to us. I'm Daniel. This is my colleague Elina. And some of the other people you probably have met, hopefully, or you can look them up if you want to talk to us. Now I will hand over to Elina.
Thank you, Daniel. One of the main funders for the conference next year will be Digital Futures, which is this kind of collaborative research center. And you might wonder, why do I want to talk about them? Well, they have lots of calls for example, postdoc positions and visiting scholar. And Adrian Friday, are you here in the room? Adrian were happily spending a month with us through one of these visiting scholar funding that you can get from there. So I warmly recommend you to scan the barcode and apply and come and work with us for a longer or shorter period.
Yeah, you can actually apply every 4th month. There are 3 times per year you can apply.
Yeah, at least for the postdocs. Anyway. And you might think, oh, Stockholm, it's at the end of the world. I can't go there, I will be a virtual participant. But we really, really would recommend and encourage you to take the train to Stockholm because it's possible. Actually, we did it the other way around when we came here. So these are very highly unprofessional pictures taken from our train ride to Rennes. We're also going to go back. We haven't had any big mishaps so far. And while I have your attention, I want to also ask you to tell your students to come to us in the autumn of 2024 because we have just gotten a new master's program accepted at our university. So the Sustainable Digitalization, a 2-year master's program, is going to be great. Unfortunately, there's not a web page yet since we just got the acceptance, but we will come with more information about that. And then last night, wonderful Disnovation said that you could join another conference in a few days, the Limits workshop. So here's a barcode again that you can scan, and it's a totally online workshop with a fantastic program, and it's free of charge. So please come and join us there as well.
Yes. So we leave you with this slide so that you can take down already now the dates. Please put them in your calendar. Dates for the conference, and again, submissions end of January. Okay, and with that...
Shouldn't you do some kind of striptease, or, you know?
Striptease?
You know.
Oh. Yeah. Oh. I forgot. I should have done this before, of course. I brought the T-shirt. I should have showed it.
Yeah. He called me disloyal this morning when he asked me, where's my KTH T-shirt? I'm like, I didn't bring one.
I will report her. Anyway, but it's a very friendly conference, except the banter between us. But anyway, you are so welcome to Stockholm next year. Please already start by thinking about your papers and planning the trip to Stockholm 1 year from now.
See you. Bye. And now we're going to welcome Benoit up to the stage.
Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning to all the participants of the ICT4S conference, but also I'm very happy to welcome all the participants of the GDR GPL and all the additional general public participants that registered for attending this keynote. So I have the great honor to introduce our keynote speaker of this off program of the ICT for Us 2023 conference. So this morning we are welcoming Jean Jouzel. Jean Jouzel is an award-winning researcher at CEA in France. So CEA is the French Alternative Energy and Atomic Energy Commission in France, and he is a researcher in the fields of glaciology and climatology. So I'm not going to list all the awards that he received because that would take so many time, but just citing a few of them. He is a member of the French Academy of Science. He is also a foreign associate of the US National Academy of Science, and he also has been awarded by the most prestigious academic prize in France, the gold medal of the CNRS in 2002. He has been president and head of many councils and institutes in France, while he was also the vice president of the IPCC in between 2002 and 2015. He is French. He is also from Brittany, so he is local today. So we are very happy to welcome him at the University of Rennes for this keynote in the context of the OFF program. And he will talk about climate change and the need of a new model of development and the key role of higher education. I think most of you are in education, and I think we are all super excited to welcome him for hearing from him. So please join me in giving a big applause and welcoming him.
Good morning. Thanks, Benoit. Thanks, Günther. Thanks to the organizing committee for inviting me to this meeting to give a keynote. Okay, my field of research is climate change, evolution of our climate. And this keynote is about something we are aware of, I would say at least since 50 years or more, obviously. We are aware of greenhouse effect since more than practically 2 centuries now. But we are aware of the risk posed by our activities to our climate. I would say mostly after the World War II, because it's computing, which is very important, this you know. And I would say this awareness was really a key scientist is Suki Manabe. Indeed, Suki Manabe got the Nobel Prize in Physics 2 years ago. He was a pioneer in modeling, climate change, I would say, because he was the first to look at what will happen if we were going to double the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. We call this climate sensitivity. This was in the 60s. And in 79, this was this Charney report, and the answer was clear. If we double the quantity of CO2 in the atmosphere, we will get a warming between 1.5 and 3.5 degrees C. And this was anticipated at that time, I would say mid-century, end of 20th mid-century. And unfortunately, this is still possible. So I started myself research in 68. So my PhD thesis on hailstone formation, but I moved rapidly to study of ice cores, and I was lucky to be associated with this research on the Vostok ice core with our Soviet colleagues at that time. We are in 87, and with my colleague Claude Lorius, who passed away 2 months ago. And in this deep drilling, what we showed, it was the first time we were showing that greenhouse gases, I mean the composition of the atmosphere, plays a role in on our planet. Before it was more theoretical. Okay. So you see this glacial interglacial change. Obviously, the metronome is what is important is the position of the Earth on its orbit, is inceleration change. But we show here that obviously, the composition of the atmosphere and greenhouse gases also play a role in this glacial interglacial change. So this was, we are in the 80s, and the 80s were, it was a lot of meetings about this climate change issue, and this ends up in 88 with the launching of this IPCC that Benoit you mentioned, International Panel on Climate Change. So the aim of which is simply to provide assessments, is not to make recommendations. We have 3 working groups, and we are indeed at the 6th report, which was recently published. The full report, it's every 5 or 6 years, so you see 95, 2001, and the last one this year. I have been myself involved in IPCC as a lead author in the 2nd and 3rd report, and as member of the Bureau and one of the vice chair of Working Group 1 on the physics of climate change in the 4th and 5th report. So there is this report, and where are we now? I will not be too long to where are we now about this issue. Do we influence our activities or climate? What is clear is that yes, I would say climate warming is a reality. It's a reality. You have the last 8 years at global scales have been the warmest since 150 years. Okay, so this one thing we experience now clearly, and this is not a surprise. This is not a surprise because what we have done collectively is that we have modified the composition of the atmosphere in this series of gases we call greenhouse gases, the property of which is simply to trap part of the energy when solar radiation is reflected at the Earth's surface, on its way back. This property of greenhouse is well documented but the first, so it's something which is very useful. Without this greenhouse effect, the temperature of the Earth will be around minus 18 degrees C. We will not be, there is no life on this, probably on this planet. Okay, but what is the problem is that we increase the greenhouse gases. So water vapor is the first greenhouse gases, the first contribution is from greenhouse gases, from water vapor, but we do not change the composition of water vapor directly. We change in the atmosphere by our activities. We change it indirectly because the temperature of the ocean increases, and so we have more evaporation, more water vapor in the atmosphere, and indeed this amplifies global warming. What we do more directly is to emit in the atmosphere carbon dioxide, is obviously using fossil fuel with oil, obviously coal and gas. So we talk in gigaton of CO2. So we have 37 gigatons of CO2 emitted, I would say, last year. We have due to fossil fuel use, deforestation. When you burn wood, we also emit carbon dioxide, and so it's about 5 to 6 gigaton. Cement, when we fabrication of cement, is 1 or 2 gigaton. We emit collectively 45 gigaton of CO2, and but we have other gases like methane or methane and carbon. Here I show nitrous oxide. Most of methane, and a large part of methane and nitrous oxide is linked to agricultural practices. We talk in equivalent CO2, and overall there is about, last year it was probably around 60 gigaton of equivalent CO2, accounting for both CO2 and the other greenhouse gases. What is the result? The clear result, and this is why the global warming is not a surprise. The result is that we have increased the amount of energy available to ensure the equilibrium between, thermodynamic equilibrium between the atmosphere, the surface of the ocean surface, and the atmosphere and what it interacts with, ocean surface, continental surfaces, and I would say ice. So we have increased warming, the energy, available energy, practically by 1%. So, and this 1% is sufficient to really increase our temperature, indeed already by 1 degree C. So you see, so this was in 19, it was 54 gigaton, it's practically 60 now. You see this increase of this greenhouse effect, clearly. Again, a large part is due to fossil fuel. What is important now is that you have additional heat. So only 1% of this additional heat is used in the atmosphere. So it's very important to look at what occurs in the atmosphere, this warming, obviously, but most of this heat, more than 90%, enters in the ocean. And indeed, the diagnostic is here very clear. Sea level rise, it's well documented. We are now at 3 to 4 millimeter per year, and it's double with respect to what we, it's double during the second part of the 20th century. It was between 1 and 2 millimeter per year. And I give the conclusion of IPCC report. Donc you see that in this, so I would say half of this sea level rise is due to thermal expansion, the ocean temperature increase. So the figure is that at global level, the global warming is 1.1 degrees C. Indeed, this was 3 years ago, it's more 1.2 now. At the global level, it's practically less than 1 degree in the ocean, more than 1 degree over the continent. And this translates by thermal expansion the thermal expansion contributes practically to half of the sea level rise. The other half is linked with ice melting, either from continental glacier, and I would say since 30 years or so, since the 90s, there are contributions from ice sheets, so Greenland in the north and Antarctica in the south. It's clear we have this contribution. And so, in short, this sea level rise really give clearly is clearly due to thermal expansion, to the warming of the ocean and the melting of ice, which are really two key results of this global warming. It's clear, and so the conclusion now is that so warming is unequivocal, unprecedented, and it's entirely attributable to our activities. So, so the attribution of this global warming to our activities is based on what I show here, on the average temperature, but also of this sea level rise, and its acceleration is also attributed to our activities. And indeed, I come back to the IPCC report, this attribution is really a key question we are asked, I mean, we have to answer in the IPCC report. Are human activities already modifying Earth's climate? And this has really evolved over the 6 reports. As you say, in the first report, we say we don't know. We don't know if I mean, the warming was just really emerging. Perhaps in the second IPCC report, probably in the third, very probably in the fourth, extremely probable in the fifth report, and it's a certainty. We are certain, our communities, that human activities influence the atmosphere, the ocean, and the land. This is the conclusion of the 6th report. So it's, I would say, established about average warming, about it's also sea level rise, it's also attributed, and the change which are now observed, clearly observed and clearly documented in extreme event are also attributed to our activities. At least this extreme event, heat waves and hot extremes, as you see on the part of the world which are in red, there are regions where these heat waves are either more frequent or more intense or both. And you see it's all around the world practically. It's true for Western, and when you have 3 stars, it's that we are able to attribute with a high level of confidence this change, this modification of extreme events to our activities. And this is the case for the Mediterranean, Western Europe, practically all over Europe. It's really the case. So we also, for the first time, attribute this change to our activities. Where are we now? What is important is that what we experience today is really, I mean, I work in this field over more than 50 years, is really what we were anticipated over these last 50 years. It's true for the rhythm of climate change. It's what we are unfortunately expected in the 20s when we were. It's true for this acceleration of sea level rise. It's not a surprise, it was anticipated. It's also true for extreme events. It was anticipated that this extreme event will become more intense or more frequent. So the fact that, I would say, our scientific community has correctly anticipated what we experience today should invite us, obviously, to give credibility at what we anticipate for the coming decades and beyond. And obviously, what we anticipate depends on what we'll do. Obviously, it's clear that if we emit a lot of greenhouse gases, if we business as usual scenario, so here you have 5 scenarios, 2 emitting scenario, 2 low scenario, low carbon scenario, and 1 intermediate scenario. The highest scenario in terms of emission is when it's doing nothing, business as usual. obviously, if you emit a lot of CO2 and other greenhouse gases, we will go towards global warming not far from 5 degrees C at the end of this century. Indeed, it's not entirely correct that because over the coming 2 decades, I mean, the warming does not depend, only marginally depends on what we will do. Okay, what is important to keep in mind is that what we will do this decade until 2030 will play a role mostly on the climate after 2050. We have this, it's very important. I mean, we are sure that this global warming will continue, and probably we will reach 2 degrees C around 2050 at the global level. But so no, on the one point also, it's clear. So it's nice to invite to Sweden. I mean, it's well, okay. Okay, so warming is there. In the Arctic, I mean, you have this amplification, and as you can see here, it's less intense over the ocean. And obviously, as you can see, when we talk about 4 degrees C warming, it's more 5 to 6 degrees C in over some continents, and up to 7 degrees C in Sweden. Consequences, no surprise. I mean, we have here 5 types of consequences, and there is no surprise with level of risk. If we take from high risk to extremely high risk, and there is no surprise with the emitting scenario, whatever the consequences you are looking at, the risk is very high. So I have a list here. I don't want to be too long, but I have a list of consequences. Ocean acidification, for example, is important because ocean absorb 10 gigaton or so of carbon dioxide every year. This is nice for us because it slows down the rise of CO2 in the atmosphere, CO2 concentration, but it's at the expense of the ocean because the ocean is already 30% more acid than at the beginning of the 20th century, and in the case of emitting scenario, its acidity would have doubled at the end of the century with respect to the beginning of the 20th century, and with consequences over all, I would say, all oceanic life and of our corals, which indeed will be affected over 2 degrees C warming, as they will be already accepted. I will come back on climate extremes, also on irreversible processes at sea level. It's also important to look around us, and nature is very affected by this warming in terms of biodiversity, agriculture, ecosystem. So there is also populations. So we can talk of climate refugee, of water resources, of food security, security in general. And indeed, if we take these consequences not one by one but together, the first risk of global warming is increase of inequalities. This is clear. Some examples. So where are we with climate extreme as heat waves? Here you have, we are looking at one event which was occurring before warming starts, once every 10 years, okay? And you see already at 1 degree C, it occurs practically 3 times every 10 years. It's 3 times more frequent and more intense. I mean, the heat wave, I mean, the climate, I mean, heat wave intensity increase more rapidly than mean average temperature. This is clear. And you see at 2 degrees C, it will be practically 6 times, and at 4 degrees C, it will be practically every year we will have this event, type of event, with an increase of this, clear increase of its intensity. We have also EV precipitation. It's really coming, you see it was 2 or 3 weeks ago in central Italy, 2 years ago in Netherlands, in Belgium and Germany. So it's really a problem. These EV precipitation events also more frequent and more intense. It's clearly well documented, and also these are projections, but it's clear what we expect. Also, droughts are also, again, it's modeling. They are expected to be more intense, more frequent. Okay, it's the same also, as you see, is standard deviation, so it occurs, as you see, even at, they occur already more frequently, and you see that it will become drier and drier, at least in some regions, not all around the world. So what we can see in terms of precipitation over the year, okay, you see the annual mean, but also during winter. You see in green, so in Sweden you will have more and more precipitation. So not in June? No. Okay. No, but even in summer you have a risk, and less precipitation over the Mediterranean region. It's clear. So, and so this we understand this because of as you can see, the Hadley circulation. The circulation is changed, and I mean, in a bad way. I mean, there is more precipitation, there is more evaporation at the ocean is warmer, we have more water vapor in the atmosphere, this is observed, more precipitation, obviously, on the average, but unfortunately, an increase in precipitation in regions where there is already a lot of precipitation, sufficient precipitation, and a decrease of precipitation in regions where indeed there is not sufficient amount of precipitation, about around the Mediterranean, for example. So some risk for forest fire. You see, again, I know you had in 2 years ago a lot of forest fires in Sweden. I will not insist, but okay. This was unexpected at some point, but it starts to be reality. I mean, I show here a region on the left where the risk of forest fire was planned to be already important at mid-century. And so you see, if you look at the map today, for example, indeed, Sweden, South Sweden, or Western France, or Central France is not at risk. It was not at risk up to now. But, for example, last year we had a forest fire in Brittany, here, not far from here. And so this region, which were not at risk, which in principle are becoming at risk even more rapidly than we were anticipated. I show this map since probably 20 years. So, there is also on agriculture, I mean, on yield, crop yields. Obviously, if we limit if the warming is limited, I mean, so you have in short, I should say that in blue you have the region where the yield will increase. You have some region around the world, okay? In marron and yellow, you have where the decrease, and if the if the warming is limited, there is equilibrium, there is balance between the region where crop yields increase and decrease. But at the end of the century, when the warming is important, it's clear that the region where the crop yield decrease, I mean for maize, for wheat, for soya, really, or for rice, really take over the region where we educate. I mean, overall the crop yield will decrease due to global warming at the planetary level, I would say. Consequences on also extreme events, for example, heat waves will multiply, sorry, it's in French, but will multiply the deaths by up to, as you can see, up to 10, 20. The number of deaths over Europe is 3,000 on the average, but we already see that in 2003 it was 75,000 deaths in Europe. So it was an exceptional year. This can become common again in the second part of this century. Over 100,000 victims of largely of heat waves. Sea level rise, it's important for a lot of countries. Again, not far from 1 meter with at the end of the century with emitting scenario. But the problem with sea level rise, it will continue. It will continue over centuries and centuries. If you look at 2030, in 200 years or so, slightly more, in the emitting scenario, you could reach a few meters, up to 7 meters, and even more at millennial scale. You see that. So it's very important to have in mind that we decide today of the sea level rise that we will. The sea level rise of the coming century is largely decided during this decade and the coming decades, our emission. So I will stop here on the consequences, and obviously emitting scenario is doing nothing is not, what we should do, and it's clearly what we understood rapidly because the first IPCC report is in 90. In 92, you have this climate convention. There is also a convention. We are in 92 in the Rio Earth Summit, and there are 3 conventions: one on the climate, biodiversity, and desertification. The objective of the climate convention is to achieve stabilization. At a level, we would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference. Okay, and we know already that we knew already at this time that to stabilize greenhouse warming, we should decrease our emission of CO2. But it was not we have done because I already gave the figure. In 70 we were emitting, I started in 68, in 70 we were emitting 27 gigaton of equivalent CO2, and we have more than double over the last 50 years. And even if we knew that we should decrease this emission if we want, to be able to achieve, I would say, climate stabilization. This was clearly known because we know that if we emit more CO2 than vegetation and ocean are able to take, we will increase the amount in the atmosphere, is what we experience today. So this climate convention meet regularly. There is indeed this week a meeting of the climate convention, but there is an annual meeting at the end of the year, the COP, the meeting of the parties, and the first one was in 95. And there are 3 agreements. The first one is Kyoto Protocol. The second one is in Copenhagen in 2009. And indeed, the idea to limit, to decrease the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere on greenhouse gases and to decrease emission was not at all, it was a failure. It was not possible to reach really this objective of decreasing the greenhouse gases concentration. It has continually increased and it continues to increase. Kyoto, I mean, the objective of Kyoto was really it was a developed country were invited to decrease their emission between, over the period 2008-2012, they were invited to decrease their emission with respect to the base, which is 1990, and which was nice, but it was not a success. Why? Two reasons. Because obviously, the Kyoto Protocol was signed by Al Gore, but George Bush, they decided, US, when George Bush was elected in 2000, not to ratify, the Kyoto Protocol. US was not involved in the Kyoto Protocol, and this was bad news for this Kyoto Protocol. And also the emergence of China, it was not anticipated really that over between 2000 and 2012, I think China, the emission of China have tripled. Okay, this was not really anticipated. The result is that emission have continued to grow. Copenhagen was also really a failure. It was not. The objective of Copenhagen was to have an ambitious objective for the period 2013-2020. Okay, and the third agreement is the Paris Agreement. We are in 2015, and here the objective is to define the objective. The objective of the Paris Agreement was to look at what should be done over the period we are now, over the period 20 to 30. In the 20, our decade, up to 2030. So this is a period of the Paris Agreement. There are two major changes when we look at the Paris Agreement with respect to the previous agreement. The first one is that in the original climate convention, there is no, there is no level of warming specified. The objective is to really to have a limitation of climate warming, but there is no figure in the original. And so this came in the Paris Agreement. And this is very different. In the Paris Agreement, we have really objective to limit global warming well below 2 degrees C, and if possible, to look at what's happened at 1.5 degrees C. What is the objective? The objective is really to take measure now in such a way that, I would say, young people from today will be able to adapt in the second part of the century and beyond. Okay, and it's clear that consequences of climate change are such that if the global warming was over 2 degrees C, it would be very difficult. We will see, indeed, it was a special report on global warming, so this was at 1.5 degrees C, the conclusion of which is clear. Indeed, it would be much easier for the second part of the century to adapt to climate conditions if the global warming was limited to 1.5 degrees C. So this has been adopted 2 years ago at Glasgow, at the climate conference in Glasgow. And I have also had the opportunity to be part of the French delegation since 20 years, since I have participated to all the COP since 2001, I think. And it's very different. Now, where do we want to go? Indeed, the idea that we would like to go to, the idea is now that the priority is given, at least in the objective, to a limitation to 1.5 degrees C. indeed, it would be much easier to adapt to 1.5 degrees C than to 2 degrees C. 1/10 of degree counts, it's clear. Less extreme weather, slower rate to read, I mean, smaller reduction, and so on. So, whatever you look at, it's clear that it would be better to limit to 1.5 than 2 degrees C, and even than 3, 4 degrees C. But how do we get there? So again, so business as usual, I mentioned, would lead to 4 to 5 degrees C. The problem now is that even if the Paris Agreement are fulfilled, which is not even sure, in the commitments, we are going towards 3 degrees C in the second part of the century. It's clearly twice too much with respect to the capacity of easy adaptation. It's where we are doing now. If we want to keep the possibility to, we will go over 1.5 degrees C. I mean, probably 1.5 will be reached next decade, and probably 2 degrees C at average around 2050, which means probably in some countries 3 or 4 degrees C. And so we are going really on the average. So it would be necessary to have to keep a chance for 1 degree C. Really, we have to decrease rapidly the concentration. I will come back, and we are also to extract carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. All this pathway, we talk about carbon dioxide removal. It's really very demanding to keep below, around 1.5 degrees C. How do we get there? And this is really, I would say, a range of. I am in favor of innovation, technology. So you are in the digital world, but the innovation have no meaning if they contribute to increase the emission. It's clear. Donc, we have to innovate. Innovation is very important, but innovation should aim towards carbon neutrality. So this is clear. So, what you have probably so technology are important, but they have to be really contributing to I would say carbon neutrality. So a range of technologies. This comes from IPCC. We need money, investment in this field. Renewable should take a large place, at least at the world level. It's clear that renewable should be the key. Coal decline, oil. So, as you say, donc, this is very clear. What you can keep in mind. So, it's obviously we understand that if we want to stabilize our climate, we have to reach carbon neutrality. I mean, greenhouse concentration, greenhouse effect has to stabilize, and more we are ambitious in the level of stabilization, more rapidly should this carbon neutrality reach. In the Paris Agreement, the focus was on 2 degrees C, and in the Paris Agreement, it is mentioned that carbon neutrality, 2 degrees C is, requires carbon neutrality in 2055, or around in the second part of this century. But 1.5 degrees C requires carbon neutrality 2050. And it's clear to answer one of the questions which was asked, it's clear that carbon neutrality until 2050 is really a major change in the model of development of our, I would say, civilization. It's clear. So, where are we now? What is clear is that half a degree matters. ideally, it would be nice to, we could be able to come back to 1.5 degrees C at the end of the century, but it's rather a dream. It's a dream, but it's very important to keep this dream alive. I mean, the viewpoint of climatologists, when you look at the consequences of climate change, is really what we should do, what we should aim. Because very often journalists ask me, okay, we will be unable to keep around 1.5 degrees C, 1.5 degrees C. Why to keep this objective? Because it's really built on this idea that we should limit consequences of climate change. Some people say that try to adapt your objective to what we are able to do. No. Okay. What we're able to do, it's probably, it's still possible probably to keep below 2 degrees C, but it's not simple. It's really a large change. We can have less pessimistic views than I have had for to know. It's very difficult, as you know, to keep even below 2 degrees C. We are, I will repeat, towards 3 degrees C. But what is interesting is that more than 100 countries around the world have adopted in one way or another this objective of carbon neutrality in 2050. We are larger. This is the case for Europe. This is the case for France. It's in the law. It's the case for Europe. You have this very ambitious objective in Europe of minus 55 decrease with respect, 2030 with respect to 90. It's very ambitious. It would be nice if we were able to reach it, but it's not simple. It would need a decrease of 5% every year now in France, for example, for emissions. Even China has a really objective on carbon neutrality in 2060, 2070 for India and Saudi Arabia. So in the text, it's not so bad, okay? But in the reality, you have this gap between the objective, which are in the text, and the reality. And this is clear. We should, and so this is now, it's not tomorrow. We should divide our emission by a factor of 2 with respect to where we go in 2030. Okay. So it's not tomorrow, it's today. So we repeat this also. So more in France, we have a lot of, I will finish also on the importance. More in France, we have also this climate convention. I was part of this climate convention. Citizens, 150 citizens, have made propositions which are very ambitious, very smart in all, but only a small part of this recommendation have been taken into account in our more recent law, 2 years ago. So obviously, so it is in building, agriculture, waste industry, also in forestry. So where we are, I have talked about climate change, but climate change for me is more than temperature, precipitation. It's really the organization of our society. This is really the message I want to give. I'm very interested, but I could elaborate of climate justice and so on, the fact that inequality will increase with climate change. I work on all these aspects. Societal aspects are important. Is also all the nature which is at risk. This is really a conclusion from the last climate report. And so it's also obviously economical consequences. And my feeling is really that we cannot escape to this transition, okay? Because if we don't succeed to reach stabilization, this means if we don't, if we continue, to have, if we are unable to reach carbon neutrality, it means that we accept that climate warming continue indefinitely. So it's very important to have this in mind. So it's better to have this idea that this will happen, this carbon neutrality. Not obviously too late with respect to 1.5, maybe too late with respect to 2 degrees C, but even, I would say on the economical aspects, the best is to really envisage this transition. And this is what we are doing, and I'm sure, I am convinced that this can really be help to economy, to the dynamism of the economy. What is important also, and I will finish on this, but I will not elaborate too much, but it's clear I have also, I'm not a professor, I am a scientist only, but I have been solicited to, so sorry for the title, but for this higher education, in the higher education, is not at all teach correctly. This, not only global warming, but biodiversity, this transition, ecological, this really transformation of our society. It's not at all taught, it's clear. And so we had a lot of recommendations with my colleagues in biodiversity, Luc Abadi, and about this, what we should do. The idea is that we should have in the higher education, university, schools, and so on, whatever the type, we should have a better teaching about, obviously, our society. Okay, and climate change is really a key issue in this, and so we have a lot of recommendations. I will not go in detail, but part of them are already. So there is our ministry has already done something, make proposition. We are trying to help and there will to help. Our community, climate community, is really ready to help to this type of teaching, and we have the hopes that there will be a decision that next year for really all the university. I know I came here to. I came at Rennes last year, I think, to give a talk about this report, and I know you are doing things. No, it was not. It was I was on my training. I was not here physically, but I gave a talk here about this perspective, and it's really very important. It's important also, but you have the term sustainability in your meetings, which is nice. It's also important for your field, again, to keep this idea, to contribute to carbon neutrality, and not the contrary. This is very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vous m'entendez? Oui, super. Merci. Thank you very much for this presentation, Jean. We have a bit of time for taking a few questions from the audience. So please, there is some question here.
I raised my hand quickly. I'm Stephanie Kunkel from Helmholtz Center in Potsdam. As a disclaimer, I don't want to criticize you personally, but I'm going to ask a heretic question. Is the way you are conveying these messages, in your view, the way forward to address these problems still in today's world? And here's two aspects that I'm referring to. I think in the IPCC we don't have the right representation, or what I would call the right representation of people from the global south, of women, and I think there's a problem in the institution of the IPCC and maybe on institutions that do similar things. And the second concern that I'm having is that there is a lack of social science research in the IPCC. Specifically, we know a lot about the changes that CO2 in the atmosphere will cause. And I think you talked about half an hour about all the risks, and people may have already become numb about the risks. But what we don't know so much about is why we are not able to address these risks as a society. What are the underlying societal dynamics, and how do we address the barriers to rapid action on climate change? And I feel that the IPCC and some others are very conservative and only favor a certain type of science that will not help to solve the issues. Thank you.
So I will try to answer. Well, obviously, I'm more oriented on the working group 1 or group 2, but I could speak. I mean, this in the working group 2 report of 2003. There is a full chapter on social sciences, and there is a lot of social sciences. You are wrong in saying that. You have not read the last report, because there is a full chapter of the demand of what we. So what we have talk of is really discussed in the last IPCC report. I mean, try to go to chapter 5 of working group 3, and you will show that you are most is completely what you have. Proposed no,
yes.
It's done. So okay, so it's
Thank
it
you.
was not true in the previous report. I agree. It's the part of social science in the last. Even okay, I agree. I did not talk about this, but I know. I mean, obviously, but this exists. Again, look at chapter 5 of Working Group 3 of this current report. You are also correct. I was I was in the IPCC bureau twice, and. Our aim is to have a distribution of authors worldwide. It's not so easy. I mean, we try, and we try also to increase. We have 30% we work for. I mean, women with respect. We try also to increase the number. We are well aware of this. The difficulty is for example, in Africa, we have a lot of problems to really. Not select, but only identify scientists who are willing to participate to IPCC. It's not so easy. It's really our aim. I agree. It's not reached yet, but it's really the aim of IPCC to have a worldwide repetition and to have a balance with gender balance. It's clear also. Is really the objective of IPCC.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it was again not to criticize you.
My hope we will see last month. My hope is that the next president of IPCC would be a woman. We will discuss in 1 month. It's at the end of the month. The election for the 7th round. You will see.
Okay, and I hope the social sciences will further be strengthened. Thank you.
No, normally, it can be a woman. It should be.
Elina Eriksson, I'm here on the first row from Stockholm, Sweden. In 2015, I had to give a lecture to my students on planetary boundaries and climate change, and I've been giving it since then. I have to update them every year, the slides, and the whole summer of 2015 was destroyed for me because I read the IPCC report and many things. It affected me very much emotionally. And when I gave the lecture the first time, there were students coming up to me after the lecture, and one of them had tears in her eyes, and she asked me if I could say something more optimistic. And you tell us that you've shown these slides for 20 years, or slides like these for 20 years.
Yes, sure.
How do you feel?
Yeah. Do I feel? No, I feel first, our scientific is really, I mean, the science I was associated with, and I'm still doing some researches, is really very, very, very nice to go in Greenland, Antarctica, so you have this side, okay. But the story of, no, I try to continue to tell the things. I try to interact with politicians. I am involved. I try to did something at the European level. So what I am trying to do is really to contribute, but I know it's very difficult. But I will try to continue because it's important also to be able to say things, and so what I came today with you, so it's clear. But it's disappointing at some point, and for example, I don't want to be too frank, but in France, we had this climate convention. So I was part of it, I mean, in the organization, not as a citizen. Okay, so it was really nice. There was 150 propositions, and only part of them have been taken seriously in the law. And this is very disappointing. So I was disappointed, and I told this, so it's true. So it's disappointing because we missed really. And I am very in line with the objective of Europe. I am afraid we will not reach this objective in 2030 because it's no. I mean, carbon neutrality 2050, it's important. But what is important is where we will be in 2030. Are we able to be at minus 55 with respect to 90, which is the objective or not? I am afraid we will be disappointed. But the objective is very nice, it's really ambitious. So
thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
So we can take a couple of last questions. In the meantime, just to say that we have the sketch of the keynote that has been given by Jouzel.
Yeah.
And I would like to thank Philippe
merci.
for the very nice sketch that he did during the talk. So thank you very much. I think we can
Who
give
did
an
that?
applause.
Who did that?
So Philippe is in Paris,
He's in Paris,
and
he's not here, yeah,
he was
Merci, thanks.
he was following the talk online
Okay, I
and
understand.
did the sketch online.
I understand. Thank you.
So
I
next,
will, you will. I will receive it.
I will send you,
Okay.
of course.
Thank you.
Please, Rosa.
Hello, yes. I would like to, my name is Rosanna, I am from University of Bristol, UK. I would like to request you to give a perspective on the role of information and communication technology.
Yes. It's important. Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, but go. No, you go. Your opinion. Yeah. I think that communication is my own perspective is really communication, education are very important. This is clear. We miss communication probably. I mean, again, what we experience today, what we have anticipated over 50 years, and at some point we were unable to persuade citizens that this was so communication is so important, and I don't know, you can add something. I am sure you are persuaded of this too.
Well, yes, from my point of view, communication is should be done through action, and us working with communities where we live, working with students who we teach. So that's the only way forward, I think, because talking doesn't really matter that much. But I was actually asking more with respect to the technology, ICT technology. Can you elaborate on some points where you think it will potentially have the biggest impact? So, you know, as a call for action for us to focus on particular issues, do you think?
No, I will not be. No, I don't want to be too tough. But in France, we experience something which is really we question me. I mean, on the social networks, climate skepticism is really. I mean, most of the social networks, there is a lot of climato-skeptics, and this really question me. And young people are really, I mean, obviously, they don't know where they are with respect to this climate change issue. And really, this is really a question. I mean, it's not only digital, but social network has really a problem. I mean, okay, I question, but they exist, but the point is that we are unable to, I mean, okay, so fake news are, but not only in our field, but fake news is really the rule with respect to climate change and social networks, and practically more. So it's not, and this is for me the main problem. How do we avoid fake news? How are we able to? I mean, we have arguments, but it's not so easy. And so this is my question about communication.
I see. Okay, thank you very much.
Merci.
So let's take a last question. Yeah.
So So thanks for a nice speech. I'm Matthias Höjer from KTH, Royal Institute of Technology. I was thinking, you referred to now a couple of times to the 55% in the EU, which is a part of the Fit for 55, which is a part of the climate law, and you talk about this potential that you don't think it will be possible to reach. And since this is a law and it's not a goal, you refer to it as a goal, but yeah. I'm interested in, because you showed all those things that needs to happen, but you didn't talk so much of how they could happen. But when you have regulations stating with strong measures.
I can do that. Okay, it's true that I'm not a specialist of this aspect, more economic. I could have done this, but I'm not a specialist of. I could have done this about the solution in what we propose in France, for example, or even in Europe. I mean, the roadmap is clear, but I don't know. I mean, for example, 2 days ago in France, there was a report by Pisani-Ferry, evaluating the amount of additional funds necessary to succeed in France. It would be 60 billion of euro, and it's clear that our president wants to succeed without giving one single kopeck for this transition. So how do you? This is a real problem. You have to. This is a choice of society. I mean, and we need it. I mean, it costs money, but yes. After that is we can have in buildings, in transport. I could obviously elaborate on all these aspects in agriculture and so on. In alimentation and food. And what we should do is well known, but it's a real decision, and it's really requires to reorient our use of funds towards the transition, which is not the case. We have still a lot of subsidized for oil company, for example, indeed more than for renewables and so on. So we know we have a discussion at the European level about energy. We could discuss of this during, but I'm sorry, it would require one additional hour, and but next time I will come with this. Okay, I'm sorry, but I have a train in 1 hour.
Thank you very much for this presentation. So just to say that you was talking about the last summer that was terrible in France, and we already experienced some fire in Brittany yesterday. So it's going to be even worse probably this year. So thank you very much for this presentation. And just let me give you a gift for you. Thank you very much for coming.
Merci. Thanks a lot.